Let us worship.
I've really got to use my imagination to think of good reasons to keep on keeping on. I've got to make the best of a bad situation. Ever since that day I woke up and found you gone. Darkness all around me, blocking out the sun. Old friends, they call me, I don't want to talk to no one. Emptiness has found me, and it won't let go. Why go on living? I just don't know. I really got to use my imagination to think of good reasons. Keep on keeping on. I got to make the best of a bad situation. Ever since that day I woke up and found you gone. Hiding from reality won't do me no good, 'cause a misunderstanding is too well understood. Such a sad, sad season when a good love dies. Not a day goes by I don't realize I've really got to use my imagination to think of good reasons to keep on keeping on. I've got to make the best of a bad situation. Ever since that day I woke up, since that day I woke up, ever since that day I woke up and found you gone.
Good morning. I'm Sophia Hosting, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley UU Society. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and sometimes they. I love Gladys Knight and the Pips, and I love that we centered people of color for our prelude. As we use our imagination to rebuild our society after COVID, we have the opportunity to also imagine building a society that strives to be multicultural and anti-racist. As president of the board, I am so blessed to be part of such a welcoming congregation and to serve on a board that has pledged to start studying over the next few months how we can be more than welcoming, more than inclusive, and to become leaders in how we can lift the most marginalized into full equity via being actively anti-racist, anti-ableist, anti-transphobe, anti-xenophobe, and all the other isms. We know that before we can consider adopting the eighth principle in our congregation, we need to know that we need to prepare ourselves body, heart, and mind so that we have internalized what it means, what we must become and do to be anti-racist, to ferret out and correct any systematized oppression that may still linger. To that end, the board is starting the journey by reviewing Widening the Circle of Concern, a publication put out by the Committee on Institutional Change of the Unitarian Universalist Association, which provides insights and guidelines for how Unitarian Universalists can do better. We must do better. My hope is that as other committees and groups join us on this journey, we can all one community. And I am looking forward to more announcements. And with that, let me welcome everyone here with our traditional welcoming words. Come, come, whoever you are. You are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You're welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes. You are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, or some of the time, or even none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society.
Thank you so much for that, Sophia. Welcome everybody again to our first service of the new year. I hope that everyone had a safe and enjoyable New Year celebration, or at the very least, I hope you had a chance to sleep in a little bit the first day of 2021, able to turn the page on a tumultuous year and begin a new one with some rest and clarity. Today's service, as Travis's song implied, focuses on the theme of imagination, of having a vision for a new self, a new community, a new world. I invite you all to join us this morning in that spirit. Come, let us worship together.
Our opening song, our gathering song for this month, in fact, is number 95 in the hymnal, There Is More Love Somewhere. And just to do something a little bit different, the Church of the Larger Fellowship has put together a number of UU hymns, and the lyrics are going to be on your screen.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace There is more love somewhere. There is more love everywhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere.
Good morning, everyone. And now it is time for our chalice lighting. The chalice words should be in the chat box. If you have a small candle or chalice of your own, we welcome you to light it with us. Please unmute yourself and feel free to stand as we all say our chalice lighting words together. We light this chalice,
Chalice,
warmth
for the
of
warmth
love,
of love,
for the light of truth,
Light, truth,
and for the
for
energy
the
of
energy of action. I wouldn't trust it there, so I'll put it over here.
Welcome again, everybody. And this morning, we do want to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who may be joining us for the first time. We're very glad that you're here, and we would love to get to know you as well. Our greeter today, Marilyn, is going to drop our connection card into the chat box for any newcomers so you can be connected with our community. This is a caring and supportive community. If you find yourself in need of support or care or just a listening ear, please fill out our pastoral care card, and our pastoral care team and/or our minister will be in touch with you. The link to that pastoral care card is in the chat box, and you can also find it on our website. All of our online services are intergenerational. To find out more about religious exploration programming, you can get in contact with Rebecca Britt. She's our Director of Religious Exploration. Her email address will also be in the chat box. We have a lot of things going on here at South Valley, and one of the best ways to stay connected with us is via our weekly newsletter, The Happenings. You can sign up to receive that newsletter by sending an email to Lori Quigley. Her email is going to be dropped into that chat box as well. We also have a community calendar on our website, which lists midweek events and classes, and you can also find us on Facebook. Although we are physically separate, we're still very much connected. And to express that at this time, we'd like to share the warmth of community for just a moment. So at this time, you're invited to unmute yourself. It's going to be a little chaotic for a moment, but you're welcome to call out to one another in the Zoom space, or if you prefer, you can use the chat box to say hello and let us know where you're joining from. Feel free to unmute now.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Happy New
Morning.
Year.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Spring.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Morning, everyone.
Let it snow.
Hello.
Hello, Maureen.
Hi. Hello, Miss Morgan.
Hello.
Lucy looks like she's beaming up from another planet.
It's so great to see everyone.
Good to see you too, Rebecca.
So I'm so excited to share our story for all ages, which is about imagination. Let's give it a go. So this story is called Ruby Sword. It's by Jacqueline Vaside. It's illustrated by Paloma Zakimi. Ruby raced through the sea of summer grass after her brothers, their long legs leaping ahead. "Wait up," she called out. But only their laughter trailed behind, like the tail of a kite, just out of reach. Ruby flopped to the ground, heart thumping. A single cloud sailed across an endless blue sky. A warm wind rippled through the grass, bending the blades and revealing something hidden. So we're seeing 3 sticks that look like swords on the ground. Swords! Leaping and lunging, swirling and swishing, Ruby felt invincible. She raised her swords and faced a fearsome dragon. Shh, shh. The dragon faded into a haze. Ruby gathered up the other swords and marched off. "I found dragon fighting swords," she announced, slicing through the air with lightning bolts. Her brother jumped down to take a closer look. They were in a tree. Ruby granted them each a sword. 2 knights in battle, bold and brave. Click, clack, click, clack. Ruby watched. "My turn," she shouted. Click, clack, click, clack was all she heard. Her brothers only playing with each other. Ruby stormed off in a cloud of dust and disappointment. Apples hung sky high, a royal feast. The ants were stuck creekside, loyal subjects saved. The dirt needed decoration. So Ruby's finding lots of ways to play with her sword. A sudden stillness filled the air. Swallows scattered, shadows faded. A rolling storm blanketed the sky. Ruby raised her trusty sword. Wild winds whipped, swish, swish. Rumbling clouds grumbled, swish, swish. Raindrops strummed, swish, swish. Ruby gathered all her strength, swish, swish. A mighty gust of wind blew a sheet off the laundry line. Ruby caught it with her sword. She began to build. Clack, clack. Her brothers were curious. Can we help? They asked. Click, clack was all they heard. Ruby's busy building a tent. They marched away and returned with some honorable offerings. Twigs, rocks, a handful of dandelions, and finally, their swords. Together, they built a magnificent castle. Click, clack, click, clack, perfect for sheltering many loyal subjects. And 3 noble knights. The end. Thank you.
This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we are grateful. Your gifts help ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. It is our practice at South Valley to share our worship service offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. For the months of January and February 2021, we have selected Crossroads Urban Center's Emergency Fund to help those struggling to meet rent and utility payments during these difficult economic times. Crossroads is a nonprofit, multi-faith, community-based economic justice organization that was established in 1966. It is a grassroots organization that assists low-income Utahns, those with disabilities, and people of color to meet basic survival needs to address essential issues affecting their stability and quality of life. Please give generously. South Valley uses Givelify to collect online donations during worship. You are invited to give using the link that Marilyn is going to put in the chat box, or you can go to your phone and download the app. Thank you for your generosity and dedication to justice and love. Marilyn has put our offering words in the chat box, and you are invited to say these words along with me. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one.
For all that we have received, and all that we have found the courage to give, may we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing to South Valley and to the Crossroads Urban Center. Today's reading comes from the Reverend Scott Taylor in the light of this soft light of this flame. In the soft light of this flame, may our lives shimmer anew. May we notice new possibility in those relationships that seem lost. May the turning of year give birth to a dream. May the emerging light pull a new story into view. May what is give way to what might be. May we believe again in the world we imagine.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. The title of my reflection today is Use Your Imagination, which I know super imaginative of me to come up with that name. It's a cliche, absolutely, but also a perfectly apt description, as I hadn't even begun writing it into when we put it on the order of service and into the happenings email that we sent out earlier this week. I wish that I could say this failure to write things in a timely fashion at an even and calculated pace was a one-off mistake in an otherwise unblemished record of timeliness, of rigor, of self-control. Or I wish I could say that in coming off a year which felt to be unmatched by any other in terms of its relentless awfulness, I was simply too exhausted to write like I normally do. But to say that would itself be a fancy of the imagination. The truth is that I am a completely serial procrastinator. While I can be open about it, it's definitely not something that I'm proud of, and it has caused me a tremendous amount of easily avoidable stress in life. For example, at the end of my senior year in college, I had a final senior thesis to write to complete my bachelor's degree. The class for this project was amazing. You never had to show up in person, and you were just expected to use what should have been class time to do research and write a paper over 4 months, doing meticulous, detailed research, writing and revising the paper several times, and coming out of the class with a polished, professional paper you could use as a writing sample, either for graduate school or on a job application. But me being who I am, I did precisely none of that. You see, my senior year was also the year a video game called Borderlands was released on Xbox. And if you're not familiar with it, it's phenomenal. Everything from its graphics, which are a work of art, to its over-the-top storyline as you, the hero, seek to save the planet of Pandora from an evil madman who seeks to plunder the planet and all of its inhabitants of their wealth and resources, is absolutely spot on. It's highly recommended. So anyway, this senior thesis class I was taking was perfect. There was no class time to be wasted on things like discussing the intricacies of US-Iran diplomatic relationship since Iran's constitutional revolution in 1905, or boring conversations with my professor about what I was going to do with my life following graduation. All there was me, a brand new Xbox 360, the dark basement at my father's house in which, yes, I still lived, and a glorious video game addiction which prevented me from seeing daylight for what were assuredly medically dangerous lengths of time. Long story short, I played an embarrassing amount of Borderlands that semester until literally the day before the paper was due. I decided I should probably actually write the thing so I could, do that whole graduating college thing that I had ostensibly set out to do. I began writing at 7 a.m. the day before the paper was due, and I read, researched, and wrote nonstop over a 24-hour period, turning the paper in at about 7 a.m. the following morning, a full 30 minutes before it was officially due. Gratuitous amounts of snack foods and coffee were consumed, and I am almost assuredly at higher risk of COVID simply due to the actions that I took that semester. So yeah, I'm really bad at doing things in a timely way. And while it can be funny, if I'm being honest, it's probably the one thing that I've hated about myself most for most of my life. When I see people planning or breaking big projects up into manageable parts or anything similar to that, I'm simultaneously astounded by their ability to do so and ashamed of myself for not being able to do that. So many people seem to have their act together. So many people seem to get something on a very basic level that I could never do. Why could I never be like that? But this is the part of the story where imagination comes into play. I was actually discussing this very problem with a mentor of mine in hopes of divining some magical formula to fix my faults as a person. And weirdly, it kind of worked. She, by some miracle, had the same issues as me, and she told me something really amazing that day. She said that she had had this exact conversation with her therapist some time ago about how she can never break things up into smaller parts, about how it causes her so much stress and anxiety, and about how much she hated herself for that fact and beat herself up for it over and over again, and how it made her feel like a failure. But this therapist, who if I knew who she was, I would send her every single dollar I have, said to my mentor something like this: She said, well, let's take a look at what we have in front of us. You're a college professor, right? And you get to spend your days learning the things you love, sharing it with others, and making a difference through your work. So it looks to me like you're a reasonably successful person who produces pretty solid work. So is the problem really that you procrastinate, or is the problem the way you beat yourself up over and over again for doing it? And my head exploded when I heard this. My friend's therapist provided a little imagination, a little new perspective, which changed the way that I experienced something about myself. A perspective that I wasn't capable of imagining on my own. That perspective didn't fix me. I'm still a procrastinator, but I'm at peace with it, and I don't hate myself or beat myself up for it. And strangely, that change in perspective has helped me move in the direction of being more timely with my work, of breaking things into smaller pieces. Because instead of spending so much energy on being mad at myself or feeling anxious and taking part in sort of mental self-flagellation, I take time to remember instead that I'm a fairly capable person. I can do things quickly and reasonably well, but I also have more time to think about how I can plan and change and make time to do the things that I love. And so it's this spirit of imagination, of shared imagination with others, which helps us take a novel look at something old. That's what I want to speak about today, because remembering that is something that I need to get better at. Right now, I'm a graduate student and I study and teach political science at the U, so I know something about the failures and missed opportunities of humanity. And as part of that tradition, I honestly enjoy a good Jeremiad. If you're unfamiliar with that word, a Jeremiad is a kind of sermon, to quote the almighty Wikipedia, in which the author bitterly laments the state of society and its morals in a serious tone of sustained invective, and always contains a prophecy of society's imminent downfall. I'm really fun at parties. A Jeremiad is fire and brimstone and fury and death and anger. And when I was initially asked a little over a week ago to lead this service and look back on the year that was 2020, those were exactly the feelings that I had in mind. But our lay team met earlier this week to talk about today's service. And honestly, as much as I appreciate this group, they ruined my Jeremiad. Travis joined the Zoom meeting and offered to play this fun, use your imagination song about making the best of a bad situation. And then he showed us this cool Christmas stocking that he has for his cat. There's nothing less fire and brimstone than that. And then Mary and David wanted to share a funny song, which you'll hear in our postlude. And I actually love, and I'm very excited for you to hear it. And everyone was so cheerful and happy to see one another and talking about how nice their holidays had been in spite of everything. And it was clear that the general feeling of everyone in the meeting was to have a more lighthearted and fun service. These monsters wanted us to get together in a spirit of friendship and welcome the new year with a little levity and joy. Hasn't 2020 made us suffer enough? But I left that meeting realizing that my Jeremiad was very much over. And honestly, I think we're all better off for it. And I know I am. Leaving that meeting, I was reminded how we need to always pay mind to the kind of seeds that we're watering. Are we tending to our anxiety, to our depression, to isolation, to self-hatred? Or are we tending to our better angels, to joy, to community, to friendship? With the constant headlines and bad news and missed relationships, it's easy to tend to that damaging garden. I know that I struggle with that a lot, and my imagined original sermon was very much growing there. But it's precisely a return to that other garden which keeps me coming back to this church. Imagination is a very powerful thing as an individual. I won't deny that. But a community is what makes imagination truly come to life and appear attainable, achievable, and real. We're capable of very much on our own, of incredible imagination, of moving spiritual experiences, and much more. But there are some things that we simply can't do alone. Community adds depth to our spiritual experiences and sharpens the imagination. I read a story this week about an Englishman named Christopher Wren. He was a famous scientist and mathematician in the 17th century, and he was most famous for rebuilding St. Paul's Cathedral in London after it was destroyed by a fire. See, I snuck in a little fire and brimstone there after all. There's a story that one day, when Wren was supervising the rebuilding of the cathedral, he asked 3 workers what their role was. The first worker told him, "I'm laying bricks." True enough, but not very imaginative. Wren asked the second worker what they were doing, and the worker replied, "I'm building a wall." That's a little bit better, but still not very inspiring. Finally, Wren asked the final worker, and that worker replied, with a gleam in the eye, "I am building a cathedral to God." These moments that we share together, whether it's visiting a service online, coming to a meeting to discuss what a project or a service will look like, or even the fleeting moments we have when we see each other in person, like running into someone as our congregation continues to prepare food for the homeless youth, or dropping by the church quickly to pick up a book. For me, these are the moments when I personally feel like I'm building a cathedral to God, whatever God may be. The moments of shared music, of shared laughter, of shared joy, of shared purpose are the moments that not only made a difficult year bearable, but even joyful, transformative, and imaginative. In years past, I never imagined myself as a member of a church, much less as a board member or someone who would speak during a Sunday service. But being in community with you opened up new opportunities, new imaginings, and new futures. It's in that sense that this community is that soft light of the flame mentioned in the poem that Mary read for us. This past year was a year of indescribable tragedy, of lost lives, of broken homes, of smoldering cathedrals. But what we are capable of building and imagining together will always eclipse what we have lost. May what is give way to what might be. May we believe again in the world that we imagine.
Our closing song,
You switch it to Mary, not me.
is the very traditional Epiphany hymn of We Three Kings. And the music should be in the chat box. Everyone will be muted. I will be the only one that you'll be able to hear. We will do all 4 verses. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us through this perfect night. Frankincense to offer, incense owns a deity night, prayer and praising, all are raising, worship God most high. Oh, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us through this perfect night. Myrrh is mine, its bitter perfume breathes a life of gathering gloom, sorrowing, sighing, bleeding, dying, sealed in the stone cold tomb. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us through this perfect night. Born a babe on Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him again. Love forever ceasing, never in our hearts to reign. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us through this perfect night. Now is the time that we extinguish our chalice. The words are in the chat box, and you are invited to unmute yourself and stand and say our chalice lighting words together. We extinguish
With this chalice,
but
but
not
not the warmth of community, the light of truth,
or the
or the energy of action.
We hold
Each other in our hearts until we meet again.
Our postlude piece is We Three Kings in Time of COVID. And this was sent to me by an internet friend. And I'm going to put the words into the chat box right now so that you can see along and sing along if you wish. This version mercifully does not have the chorus after each verse, just after verses 1 and 4.
We three kings are 6 feet apart. We'll parallel before we depart. We've been tested as suggested. Careful are we and smart. Oh, do our masks go with our crowns? Do these face shield hide our crowns? We've had plenty, 2020, still we head toward David's town. Melchior now is quarantined, stuck in Persia, so it seems. No more travel on a camel, if there's a good vaccine. Balthazar has lost his taste. Eating food is such a waste. How disquieting now, he's dieting. Life now is slower paced. Casper left the caravan. He postponed his stargazing plans. No more roaming, Casper's foaming, scrubbing his reddened hands. Oh, 2020, soon we'll head toward David's town.
Thank you, everyone. That's going to conclude our service for today. We unfortunately don't have a social hour prepared, but go now in peace. Thank you all for coming.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.